Please accept my humble obeisance. Okay, would you like to do the Mangalacharan, Mataji? Hare Krishna.
Your voice is breaking for Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, would you like to do the Mangalacharan? Is my voice breaking? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Shashwin, Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Can you start with the Mangalacharan, Shashwin?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Dhyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Kapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadadi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Utabata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Ahegana Lalita Sagunatakitam Sadivam Sachaidam Swadudam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Bhagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitam Krishna Karuna Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopisya Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Sapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindapaniswari Krishna Devi Pranamami Yuge Hari Priye Vanjakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhayeva cha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shashwin. Continue with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 3 times, then Narayan Namaskrityam, then Nashtaprayashu, and then text 37.
Okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet. Hari Krishna. Astaprayesva Bhadreshu Nityam धातुर आवैतं जानतु कुमानी सऊति नामानि रूपानि मानो वचोबि संतान बतो नत तर्यम इवा वंया. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Shashwin, for the wonderful Mangalacharan recital. We will now move on to word for word, translation and purport. I'll do the word for word. Prahlad Prabhu, are you able to do the translation and purport of text 37?
Yes.
Okay. Let me do the word to word. Na, not. Cha, and. Asya, of him. Kaschit, anyone. Nipunena, by dexterity. Dhatu, of the creator. Avaiti, can know. Jantu, the living being. Kumanisha, with a full fund of knowledge. Utiha, activities of the Lord. Namani, his names. Rupani, his forms. Manavachobhi, by dint of mental speculation or deliverance of speeches. Santavataha, displaying. Natacharyam, a dramatic action. Eva, like. Ajnana, the foolish. Over to you, Prahlad Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Translation. The foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things neither in their speculations nor in their words. Hare Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Yeah. No one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. Therefore, it is said that he is beyond the expression of mind and speech. And yet, there are some men with a poor fund of knowledge who desire to understand the absolute truth by imperfect mental speculation and faulty description of his activities. To the layman, his activities, appearance, and disappearance, his names, his forms, his paraphernalia, his personalities, and all things in relation with him are mysterious. There are two classes of materialists, namely the fruitive workers and the empiric philosophers. The fruitive workers have practically no information of the absolute truth, and the mental speculators, after being frustrated in fruitive activities, turn their faces towards the absolute truth and try to know him by mental speculation. And for all these men, the absolute truth is a mystery, as the jugglery of the magician is to a mystery to the children. Being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being, the non-devotees who may be very dexterous in fruitive work and mental speculation are always in ignorance. With such limited knowledge, they are unable to penetrate into the mysterious region of transcendence. The mental speculators are a little more progressive than the gross materialists or fruitive workers, but because they are also within the grip of illusion, they take it for granted that anything which has a form, a name, and activities is but a product of material energy. For them, the Supreme Spirit is formless, nameless, and inactive. And because such mental speculators equalize the transcendental name and form of the Lord with mundane names and forms, they are in fact in ignorance. With such a poor fund of knowledge, there is no access to the real nature of the Supreme Being. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is always in a transcendental position, even when he is within the material world, but ignorant men consider the Lord one of the great personalities of the world and thus they are misled by illusory energy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prahlad Prabhu, for reading the translation and purport, and Shashwin Prabhu for reciting the Mangalacharan and the text. So today we were supposed to have Gauranga Das Prabhuji, but due to some activities and commitment, he's not able to join. So I have with us a video from YouTube of the same text by, I'll just share my screen so that if you can see, otherwise we have another one. Are you able to see my screen? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, we can see it.
Okay, so it is by Antardwip Das Prabhuji from ISKCON Mayapur, because in Prabhupada Vani, I did not get his recording. So we can start with this, and then it's just 20 minutes and we can then discuss. Is that okay? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Okay, and because it's raining a lot here right now, if the reception goes, please tell me, because I can't see you when I'm sharing my screen.
Okay.
Why there is music. That's why there is a need for human beings to actually live in beautiful buildings. We don't need it to survive. We could be living in a building without paint on the walls, without beautiful wood carvings and things like that. It's not necessary for survival. Where does it come from? It's not in the animal kingdom. Why do we have it? Why do we have philosophy? It doesn't put bread on the table to be a philosopher. And so people with a poor fund of knowledge, people who limit themselves to certain criteria in order to try to understand one little segment of life, and then they try and spread it everywhere. So Srila Prabhupada's purport is very nice. He says, the foolish with a poor fund of knowledge. So you can understand in the purport, Prabhupada will describe what a real fund of knowledge is, and what is the way of understanding transcendental knowledge. And so if you go through the purport bit by bit, it's very rich in ideas. Every sentence is rich in ideas. Prabhupada says, no one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. And yet we know in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, one can only know me as I am through devotional service. So there is a way to understand the nature of the absolute truth, but here Srila Prabhupada is describing the materialists. Therefore it is said that he is beyond the expression of mind and speech. So where is it said that the absolute truth is beyond the expression of mind and speech? That information is given in a real source of knowledge, the Vedas. And this is a very important part of Srila Prabhupada's preaching always. Because in a sense, he will sometimes argue with people to get down to their level on their terms for things like vegetarianism, the existence of God, and other things. But those are arguing from the point of view of a poor fund of knowledge, from speculative knowledge. Srila Prabhupada will always bring things back to what is the real fund of knowledge, and that is back to Vedic knowledge. and why he was such an incredible presenter of beyond equal and managed to bring Vedic knowledge to every country in the world was that he knew how to thread the needle of people's minds with the elephant of Vedic knowledge. He knew how to do it. He was incredible. And you can see him again, right in this purport, threading that needle. No one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the, the verse starts off, the foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms. And he immediately comes up without challenging anybody. He just puts it in there. No one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. Therefore, it is said that he is beyond the expression of mind and truth. You're already on board with Srila Prabhupada as to, oh, he's going to come up with what a real source of knowledge is. But he hasn't explicitly said so. He says it implicitly with this wonderful expression he has. No one can probably, he comes up and says completely straight from the Shastra, but he doesn't give the source. Therefore, it is said that he is beyond the expression of mind and speech, and we're all interested to hear more. He's got our interest. And yet, he's coming back. He's coming back and hammering speculative knowledge before he opens the door to what real knowledge is. He's just not letting it slip. He's underlying the fact, what is our knowledge? What is our accomplishment? What have we achieved? What is that achievement? And you can see how the world actually is in a mess. We have got smartphones, but we have not become smart people. That's the problem. And we can just look at, for all our advancement, have we come better? There's a huge argument wondering, is it actually wrong to kill children while they're in the womb of the mother? People have even lost the understanding that it is wrong to kill children in their mother's womb. And there's huge debate going on about this. And what is the criterion of the debate? The criterion is a poor fund of knowledge. You cannot decide anything if you have a poor fund of knowledge. So here he is challenging this. He says, and yet there are some men with a poor fund of knowledge who desire to understand the absolute truth by imperfect mental speculation and faulty description of his activities. So he's gone beyond a poor fund of knowledge. Actually, people who are not mental speculators trying to understand the description of the Supreme Lord, those people are very elevated. Bahunam janmante, asranam manushyesu kaschid yatatai siddhaye. Out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for perfection, it says in Bhagavad Gita. And Srila Prabhupada here is describing people out of many thousands who are trying to understand the absolute truth by imperfect mental speculation with a poor fund of knowledge. Well, how poor a fund of knowledge is it then? Those people who are not trying to understand the absolute truth and are just engaged in material activities. They're not the people with a poor fund of knowledge. Ordinary people who are not interested in spiritual life whatsoever have got no fund of knowledge. That's the problem. And Prabhupada describes society as the blind leading the blind. So here we have men with a poor fund of knowledge who desire to understand the absolute truth by imperfect mental speculation and faulty description of activities. These are the people who out of many thousands are trying to understand the absolute truth that Prabhupada is talking about. To the layman, his activities, appearance and disappearance, his names, his forms, his paraphernalia, his personalities, and all things in relationship with him are mysterious. Mysterious in the sense that they're unaccountable. There are two cases of materialists, namely the fruitive workers and the empiric philosophers. The fruitive workers have practically no information of the absolute truth, and the mental speculators, after being frustrated in fruitive activities, turn their faces towards the absolute truth and try to know him by mental speculation. So here Srila Prabhupada is putting the philosophers in the same class as the materialists, but a little bit slightly different class. But nevertheless, he's dismissing them both, all on account of their poor fund of knowledge. And the difference between a poor fund of knowledge and a real fund of knowledge, according to Srila Prabhupada, is, we'll come to that. Hare Krishna. And now there's a very fantastic part. Part of that mystery is here explained when Prabhupada doubles down in the next bit of the purport. And he makes an incredibly important point that you can easily skip over. In fact, in Srila Prabhupada's purports, you can find nearly the whole world of spiritual life just in one purport, because he touches on so many wonderful points. So the next one, for all these men, the absolute truth is a mystery, as the jugglery of the magician is a mystery to children. Being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being, who may be very dexterous in fruitive work and mental speculation, are always in ignorance. So what's incredible about that purport, that line in that purport, is that Srila Prabhupada is saying, by the jugglery of the Supreme Being. What is the jugglery of the Supreme Being for the materialists? Anyone want to suggest something? What is his jugglery? I'm not putting you on the spot. His jugglery is, of course, Maya. That's his jugglery. And it is his jugglery. He is doing it. Srila Prabhupada here beautifully says, Krishna is behind Maya. Maya is the jugglery, being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being. The non-devotees, who may be very dexterous in fruitive work and mental speculation, are always in interest. So here Prabhupada has come out and slipped in the word about devotees by talking about non-devotees. And he's brought in the idea of devotion. Non-devotee means not in devotion, not in love, not in affection. Materialists, mental speculators, not in love, not in affection, not in devotion. Non-devotees. What's the difference between one who is a poor fund of knowledge and one who is in knowledge? The difference is affection, love, devotion. That's the difference. Prabhupada has given it here. The difference is that in the material world, everybody is looking for love from friends, love from family, love from society, love from nation. But we're not looking for love from God. To some extent only. We love from our children, except when we kill them in the womb, when they're here, when they do what we want. So we're looking for love, but because we don't understand love, and we have a poor fund of knowledge, we think we love our children, and it's all right to vote for people who kill them within the womb. Because we have a poor fund of knowledge, we cannot even love properly. So it's all gone wrong. So Srila Prabhupada, his beautiful verse, he says everything here. He says, people without love, without real love, and real love means putting love in the right place, love for God, then you love your nation, then you love your family, then you love everything as part of God, as part of God's plan. People without love have a poor fund of knowledge, and they will be deceived by the material energy, which is organized by Krishna himself. For all these men, the absolute truth is a mystery. Here, mystery does not mean, mystery is good. We like a mystery. A mystery is a puzzle. Here, mystery means it's the unknown. Here it is a mystery, and it will always remain a mystery. For all these men, the absolute truth is a mystery, as the jugglery of the magician is a mystery to children. Again, he is putting down the materialists. They're like children. They are not serious adults. The mystery is there. They are like children. They're not mature. He's not giving the materialists credit in any place he's talking here. The materialists do not have credit. They made smartphones. Okay, that is to their credit. They made plane. That is to the credit. Srila Prabhupada said, we use these things in devotional service. That gives them some value. But why do they not get credit for making a smartphone or a plane? Why not give them a credit? These are wonderful things. Because they don't understand that the credit for everything, the intelligence that they get is because of their past activities, and that intelligence also comes for Krishna. Without Krishna's blessing, one will take birth as an ant and think the goal of life is to reach a sugar cube. That is the position of the living entity. It does not have any independent power from the Supreme Lord or any credit to its name. It is insignificant, and even if you are a Lord Brahma, after a while, you will be forgotten. What to speak of if you're a president or a king, if you're a famous pundit, whatever. When time passes, you'll be forgotten. Even this universe one day will be forgotten. It's got a beginning and an end. So what is the point of significance? So what is a credit? Okay, you discovered something, how to make a smartphone or something like that. Okay, that is great. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport does touch on that also. Later on in the purport, he says, we'll find it later on. Ignorant men, the very last line of the purport does actually touch on that wonderful point. Because we're talking about men with a poor fund of knowledge. We're talking about kings, we're talking about Isaac Newton, we're talking about Einstein, we're talking about Ramanuja, we're not Ramanujacharya, the mathematician Ramanuja, great people, great politicians, like Mr. Gandhi. Ignorant men consider the Lord one of the great personalities of the world, and thus they are misled by the illusory energy. Because in this world, we do have great personalities. We do have great achievements. We do have great things. And it says in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna says, I am ability in man. Men do amazing things. We do amazing things. But if they're taken, the people do not understand where their power comes from. It is of no use. So they are also with a poor fund of knowledge. So back to where Srila Prabhupada was in the purport. With such limited knowledge, they are unable to penetrate into the mysterious region of transcendence. The mental speculators, here we come to, out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for perfection. The mental speculators are a little more progressive than the gross materialists or the fruitive workers. Here he defines materialists into gross materialists or fruitive workers, which is interesting. But because they're also within the grip of illusion, they are also within the grip of illusion. They take it for granted that anything which has form, name, and activities is but a product of material energy. Now, is that a logical step for Srila Prabhupada to make? Why within the grip of illusion would they take for granted that anything which has form, name, and activities is a product of material energy? And here you have to understand the nature of mental speculation when used in philosophical discovery. Being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being, the non-devotees are always in ignorance. Non-devotees. Speculators are trying to understand the absolute truth without devotion. And the purport Prabhupada does say, being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being, the non-devotees are always in ignorance. So, without devotion, devotion means somebody else. Devotion means affection, love, devotion. It means there's another person involved. Because unless there's two people, you cannot experience exchanges. Whether it's in friendship, whether it's in parenthood, whether it's in childhood, whatever the relationship is, the loving exchange is, whatever the loving exchange is, without having someone else there, there is no loving exchange. Philosophers, devotion, that's non-devotion. They're trying to understand what is the soul. And therefore they understand that because material world and relationship are all due to the body. If the soul lives after the body is destroyed, then the body has no meaning. That philosophical understanding that the transcendentalists have, that to try and understand the difference between the soul and the body, you have to understand the difference between the permanent and the non-permanent. And because this body is not permanent, therefore I am not this body. My family are not protected to me. My teachers are not protected to me. My friends, I don't have friends. We're all relating to each other on the fact that this body came from this part of the world. Therefore, you're my friend. We speak the same language. I've known you for several years. Therefore, we have a relationship. But that's not eternal. So, incumbent on understanding who the soul is by through knowledge, one has to reject one's identity with this body, and with it, one's relationships with friends, with family, and all those things as being illusory. And thus also, with that, one has to give up affection for friends, for family, and things like that, because that affection is also an illusion. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada here says, in that wonderful, dropping these little bits of knowledge, if you put this stuff in your face in the purport, people would stop reading after the first line. But Prabhupada weaves a web of words and drops these in just at the right point. The word non-devotee comes in the middle of the purport. Anyone who's not a devotee can read it and not get put off by saying you have to be a devotee at the start and this. Prabhupada has weaved a fantastic web of words here that is unmatchable. Therefore, he's gone around the world and people are able to understand it. People can accept it because it's coming across in a very special world. He's being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being. The non-devotees, who may be very dexterous in fruitive work and speculation, are always in ignorance. And yet he's not come out with coming to the Vedas or being devotees. With such limited knowledge, they are unable to penetrate into the mysterious region of transcendence. The mental speculators are a little more progressive than the gross materialists or the fruitive workers. But because they also are within the grip of illusion, they take it for granted that anything which has a form and name and activities is but a product of material energy. Why? Because they have rejected anything which has form, name, and material as being spiritual on their path for understanding the soul, and at the same time, is they have rejected anything for which they may have affection with in this material world, not understanding that affection is ultimately a transcendental quality. And there is another person with which they have an eternal affectionate relationship. But because they're living in a negative understanding, they have not come to that. For them, the Supreme Spirit is a formless, nameless, and inactive. And because such mental speculators equalize the transcendental name form of the Lord with mundane names and form, they are, in fact, in ignorance. With such a poor fund of knowledge, there is no access to the real nature of the Supreme Lord. Okay, do you want a coup de grace? A coup de grace is when someone is having a battle with somebody and they pull out their weapon and finally manage to kill the opponent. That's the coup de grace. And here's Srila Prabhupada's coup de grace at the end of the purport. He actually brings in the Shastra. He brings in the real fund of knowledge. He's gone through all the purport, all of that. It's a work of art. Prabhupada's purport here, it's a work of art, a transcendental work of art. It is. With such a poor fund of knowledge, there is no access to the real nature of the Supreme Being. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is always in a transcendental position, even when he is within the material world. But ignorant men consider the Lord one of the great personalities of the world, and thus they are misled by the illusory energy. So Srila Prabhupada has taken us on this wonderful journey. And in the end, he sums it all up. He underlines the purport by saying, talking about ignorant men, instead of saying the foolish with a poor fund of knowledge, he sums it up after having proved it. Ignorant men, he explains why they're ignorant. They consider the Lord a great personality of the world. They're denying the personal existence of the Supreme Lord and the devotional process. And here he says, and thus they are misled by the illusory energy. And he is brought in as stated in Bhagavad Gita. So what a beautiful verse by Srila Prabhupada, what a wonderful translation, and what a fantastic purport this has been. So thank you very much, Prabhuji. It's all 9 o'clock now. So thank you very much for your patience. And Hare Krishna. And thank our Russian friends for listening in. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all. Were you able to hear properly? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Bala Nitai, who has joined this group. I haven't seen him before, so is it possible to switch on your video? Bala Nitai? Okay, maybe. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for joining this group. Prabhuji, where are you from? You are muted. Prabhuji, we can't hear you.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Bala Nitai.
Yeah, I'm in ISKCON Eldoret right now.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I'm from Kampala. I've just joined the. I've been here joining, but I was with the Arya Govinda in Nakuru. Then he gave me this code, so that's why I decided to join today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining in. Please join in every day at the same time, same link. So
Hare Krishna.
we are very grateful that you could join in. And
You're welcome.
thank you, Prabhuji. And we also have Bridge. Prabhuji, can you also switch on your video and we can welcome you?
Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Is it Brijesh Prabhuji?
Yes. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
for joining in. Hare Krishna. It's good you are here today. we didn't have a mentor today, so usually we listen to Prabhupada's Vani when we don't have a mentor, and but there was no audio on this text, so we listened to Antardwip Prabhuji, and he really explained this very difficult purport really well. So we still have time, 20 minutes, and we'll go into discussion. So thank you very much, Prabhuji, for joining in, and I'm sure there'll be questions. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I thank you for this wonderful class. It was really very informative and very intensive, deep for me to understand. I always sometimes wonder that why did Krishna create Maya? If it is, like an illusion for people and people sort of suffer with it. So why did he create it?
Hare Krishna. Arya Govindas or Brijesh Prabhu, can you throw some light on this question? Why did Krishna create Maya?
Because we wanted it. Because we wanted to forget Krishna and we wanted to have association of Maya, so he created.
Okay, just for the, I suppose he gave us an option, isn't it? That you can enjoy Maya.
True.
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 I suppose like he created darkness and lightness. So we appreciate the light. If there was no darkness, we wouldn't appreciate it. So maybe, thank you, Prabhuji, for us to enjoy.
Just to add to Arya Govinda Prabhu's point, we have a choice. We always have a choice, and part of a loving relationship is that we have choice. And we chose, as Arya Govinda Prabhu said, we chose to come here. We chose that we wanted to spend time away from Krishna. We wanted to experience what it's like to be away from Krishna. And that's where the Maya comes from. That's where the material world comes from. Is that, okay, we want to enjoy without Krishna. So Krishna's like, okay, let's send them to a place where I'm not present in my internal form, my transcendental form. So that's really where the material world comes from. And, obviously Maya is the external energy. So.
Yeah, that makes sense, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Any more additions or comments on this question? So,
Actually, when I was hearing the purport, usually Prabhupada quotes for us not to understand with our poor fund of knowledge, usually compares Dr. Frog's philosophy. He usually mentions in many of his lectures as Dr. Frog's philosophy, like a frog in a well. Another frog comes from the Atlantic Ocean and it asks this frog, and then how big is the Atlantic Ocean? Is it 2 times bigger than my will, or I mean 3 times bigger? So he doesn't. The frog cannot conceptualize or visualize how big is the Atlantic Ocean. So similarly, when we are in Maya, we cannot, with poor fund of knowledge, we cannot understand how big and how we really can't understand God unless we go to the right source. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And I used to always wonder, why were we envious of Krishna? And I really meditated on that I have everything. Why would I envy Krishna? I was with Krishna. And why did I envy him? Or how come I envied him? And then that same day, when I went to the temple, I was in Mumbai, Radha Gopinath temple, and the deities were dressed so beautifully. And I said, oh, wow, they are dressed so beautifully. Perhaps I should buy a sari like that for myself. So that was the answer I got, that look, this is the way you envied me. This is the way you did it over there as well. And you are still continuing, that you are seeing something nice on me instead of saying, wow, you look so beautiful and so pretty. And maybe tomorrow you can even have this on it or another color. And say, here I'm thinking I should have that for myself. So I, you are right, Prabhuji. We wanted it. We wanted it. And from such small examples, when you look at your life and reflect on it, you will find your faults and your anarthas. So I just thought I'd share that because I wish I can improve, and with your blessings and this association, I'm trying to get understand my anarthas. Sometimes we don't even know that we have these anarthas. So thank you very much for this discussion. Okay, any more questions or comments? It was a tough session today. And we discussed on the poor fund of knowledge that we all have, at least some of us have. And then Prabhupada went on discussing the fruitative workers, who are the ones who are always working for earning more and more and more. And then the empiric philosophers, like Prabhuji mentioned Newton, probably the philosophers, and then the mental speculators who want to understand God, but they don't do it out of love and devotion. So these are the three types of people. Even if they have knowledge of the material world, I think Prabhupada refers to them as poor fund of knowledge, and they are in the jugglery of the magician, meaning Maya. They are entrapped in Maya, and till they realize it, they won't come out of it. And I liked Prabhuji's sentence on that: for a relationship to happen, you should have somebody else. So in order to love somebody or have affection or devote yourself, there has to be somebody else. And here I'm devoting myself to my husband. I mean, that's not wrong, according to, that is my dharma. But I think that is it. But that is not really it. That's an illusion. I think we should have our love and affection and devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is just what I've understood today. But kindly correct me if, or kindly add in Arya Govindas and Brajesh Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Actually, illusion can be multifold, Mataji, in the sense that it can be subtle and gross. So we are all of us are in different types of illusion, and then Maya keeps on covering us always. So as long as you're in the association of devotees, we try and then try to get some understanding. But once you start going away from the association and then getting out of touch, so Maya keeps on covering us and making us illusioned. So that illusion is always there unless and until we move towards the association and then understanding the philosophy strongly and deeply. I mean, it's a continuous journey. Amarendra Prabhu, in his lecture, he told us that he compared that to a different phases of moon. So a moon starts with a dark moon, and then it goes on into different phases, and then ultimately it attains the full moon. So we can compare ourselves to different phases of moon. So until we go into the full moon, we still are in different phases of moon. So that's how illusion and transcendence and knowledge works.
And once we are in full moon, we again, is it like the moon, we again descend, even after understanding? Sometimes we fall down. So
no, Prabhupada has said that once we return, and also in Bhagavad Gita it is said that once we go there, there's no chance of coming back. So this in this birth, or I mean in in this condition, we have been millions and millions of births. So we don't know how many millions of births we have taken as different bodies. So it's a journey we have to complete. So we don't know how many more millions of births we'll take, but with the grace of Prabhupada and ISKCON's movement, we at least have a chance to go somewhere.
Nachoka sana, Prabhuji. I meant that we are really tired now. I said it in Swahili. What I meant was that we are really tired now of repeatedly birth and punanati jananam, punanati maranam. We are really tired, and now I think we have realized that we should put an end to this.
True, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prijesh Prabhuji. Anything to add or to contribute?
I think that's a beautiful explanation by Ariko in the group. I like the moon analogy. I've never heard that before.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Any more questions or comments? We still have 6 minutes. Okay, I guess there are no questions or comments. Then Prahlad Prabhu, kindly close the session, please.
Haribol. First, I would like to thank the devotees for assembling towards this session. I understand we didn't have a mentor, but at least we managed to get a class that was good. So thank you all for attending. I would like to kindly request all the devotees assembled here to please unmute yourselves and let's chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Pancha
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai Pramanande.
Hare Hare.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Mataji. Very nice. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.